Pause for a moment, not because something is wrong, but because something is shifting. God says, I called your name quietly, so only the ready would hear. This is not coincidence. This is not random timing. This is alignment unfolding in real time. Let this land gently. God says, when your name is called, it is not to alarm you. It is to prepare you. Preparation always comes before blessing. Not pressure, not panic. Preparation. Here is how you know this message is for you. God says, you have been feeling a strange pause like life. Inhale, not stuck, not finished, just suspended. That pause is sacred space. It is where new things step in. Listen closely now. God says, the unexpected blessing will not arrive loudly. It will arrive naturally, through conversation, a decision, a moment you almost overlooked. Stay aware. This blessing carries a specific quality. God says, it solves more than one problem at once. What you thought were separate struggles. Finances, peace, direction, support. Begin aligning into one solution. This is efficiency, not chaos. You may feel unprepared, but hear this clearly. God says, you are not behind. You are positioned. Everything you lived through trained you for this arrival. Even the confusion, even the waiting. Nothing was wasted. Here is the inner shift happening now. God says, your expectations are being recalibrated. You're no longer asking for survival. You are ready for stability. You are ready for growth without burnout. That readiness is why your name was called. Be mindful of this instruction. God says, do not announce what is still forming. Protect the blessing while it enters. Silence is not secrecy. It is stewardship. Another sign confirms this chapter. God says, you feel hope without urgency. No rushing, no forcing, just a quiet knowing that something good is approaching. That calm is the doorway. Here is the promise for this chapter. God says, what enters your life now will stay because it arrives with balance. Not excitement that fades, not pressure that drains, but consistency that builds. Hold this truth as you move forward. God says, being chosen does not mean being rushed. Move slowly. Choose wisely. Stay grounded. Seal this chapter gently. Comment the word ready because it affirms that you are open, steady, and prepared to receive without fear. Then type next chapter 2 to continue because the next chapter reveals what form this unexpected blessing takes and how to recognize at the moment it appears. Stay present. Your name was not called by accident. Chapter 2, God says, the blessing you did not expect is already on its way. Take a deep breath, not because you're anxious, but because clarity is arriving before the blessing does. God says, the universe has shifted quietly in your favor, and your name being called was the first signal. This is not about waiting in despair or forcing outcomes. This is about awareness, seeing the threads being woven for you before they take form. Here's how it begins. God says, you will notice doors opening where you thought walls existed. A message from someone you haven't spoken to in months. A payment or opportunity that arrives just in time. A moment of clarity that makes decisions obvious. Notice it, but do not panic. This is natural timing, not luck. Another part of the blessing. God says, it will arrive in a form that feels almost ordinary. Not flashy, not dramatic, subtle. It is ordinary because it fits seamlessly into your life. Yet its impact will be extraordinary. You will look back and realize this small event shifted everything. Here is the warning you must heed. God says, do not dismiss it because it doesn't look like your imagination. Your mind has expectations based on old patterns. Old patterns teach resistance. This is why many blessings pass unnoticed. Pay attention. The divine speaks softly before it acts powerfully. Another signal is internal. God says, "You will feel lightness in moments you expected heaviness. Tasks that once overwhelmed now seem manageable. Conversations that used to drain now feel clear. Your intuition, long ignored, suddenly guides without hesitation." This is preparation. This is the blessing announcing itself without words. Listen carefully. God says, people around you will notice subtle changes in your energy. They might ask, "You seem different." They might ask nothing at all. Either way, the universe is arranging alignment through your presence alone. Those meant to support you will appear naturally. Those who do not align will drift without drama. Here's how the blessing will manifest financially, emotionally, and spiritually. God says, one act or one message can carry multiple blessings. A connection might bring both opportunity and support. A decision might bring peace and financial relief. A realization might bring clarity and direction. This is why you're called today, not for one single outcome, but for a series of alignments that converge. Now, the inner work you must do. God says, stay calm and remain aware. Do not interfere with timing. The blessing will find you when you are still, prepared, and open. Any pushing, forcing, or doubting will delay the natural flow. Trust the process. You are exactly where you need to be. Final guidance for this chapter. God says, your heart must be ready to accept without condition. If you doubt, hesitation blocks arrival. If you hesitate, the universe waits. If you resist, what is meant for you passes quietly. Open, ready, calm. That is how you receive. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word arrive, because it affirms your readiness to notice and accept what the universe has already prepared for you. Then type next chapter 3, because the next chapter reveals the exact moment you will recognize this blessing and how to act without fear or hesitation. Stay attentive. Your name was called for a reason. This is your awakening to what is coming. Chapter 3, God says, recognize the blessing the moment it arrives. Stop scrolling, not because something dramatic is about to explode, but because your awareness is about to sharpen. God says, the blessing is near, and recognition is your key to receiving it fully. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is precision timing from the divine, orchestrated specifically for you. Here's how to recognize it. God says, it will feel familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. You will see something ordinary, a message, a call, an opportunity, and it will feel like a spark, like the universe is quietly nudging you. Notice the feeling, because the first recognition is the confirmation that you are ready. Another sign appears internally. God says, you will experience a sudden clarity where confusion once reigned. Questions you've been circling for weeks, or even years, will find answers in a split moment. The mind will try to rationalize it, but the heart will already know. This blessing might come in ways you did not expect. God says, it may appear as a door opening, a person returning, or a sudden resource. You might laugh quietly. You might feel a jolt of relief. You might even wonder, why now? Trust it. The timing is divine, not accidental. Another key is subtle. God says, the blessing may arrive while you are distracted. A text, a forgotten email, a message in the quiet moments before sleep. Be present even in small routines, because the divine moves through the ordinary first. Here is what to do the moment you recognize it. God says, receive without hesitation, without overthinking. Do not ask, is this too soon? Is this really for me? Do not test it, justify it, or second-guess it. Recognition plus acceptance equals activation. This is how the blessing becomes permanent. Another sign, God says, you will feel a subtle shift in your energy immediately. A lightness in your chest, a confidence in your steps, a sudden calm that says, I am exactly where I am meant to be. Notice it, anchor in it. It is proof of the alignment. Here is the silent instruction for you. God says, do not announce it to the world just yet. Keep it close. Observe. Let it grow. Let the timing of its unfolding be guided, not forced. Those who need to know will feel it through your presence. Another subtle confirmation. God says, you will see small coincidences that feel too precise to ignore. A chance meeting, a solution appearing in the exact moment, a conversation that answers multiple questions at once. These are markers of divine orchestration. Important for this chapter. God says, when the blessing arrives, respond from gratitude, not from fear or expectation. Gratitude amplifies it. Fear diminishes it. Expectation can distort it. Stay grounded, calm, and aware. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word now, because it affirms your ability to recognize and receive the blessing the moment it enters your life. Then type next chapter 4, because the next chapter reveals how to multiply the blessing quietly, how to honor it, and how it will create ripple effects in every area of your life. Be attentive. Your name was called for this precise moment. Do not miss it. Chapter 4, God says, multiply the blessing quietly and watch it transform your life. Stop everything for a moment, not to panic or overthink, but to anchor in this truth. God says, when a blessing enters your life, it carries the power to multiply if honored correctly. This is not about showing it off. This is not about rushing. This is about quiet stewardship. Here is how to honor it. God says, treat every small sign with reverence, and it will grow. A message that arrives, a resource that appears, a person who shows up unexpectedly. Do not dismiss these as ordinary. Divine timing is subtle, and your acknowledgement fuels its expansion. Another truth, God says, blessings are amplified through gratitude, intention, and restraint. Gratitude, feel it fully, internally, without needing validation. Intention, let every action be aligned with the blessing's energy. Restraint, do not force it or announce it prematurely. This is how ordinary moments become extraordinary transformations. Listen closely to this part. God says, your reaction determines the blessing's trajectory. React with anxiety, doubt, or hesitation, and it slows. React with calm, trust, and gratitude, and it accelerates. The universe aligns with your energy, not your logic. Another layer. God says, share what comes naturally without attachment. Helping others, investing in growth, or using the blessing to uplift. Do so without expectation of return. The more you give from alignment, the more the universe reciprocates, often silently and beyond imagination. Here is a subtle but powerful signal. God says, blessings that multiply quietly do not demand your attention constantly. They arrive, settle, and grow in the background. You notice them at the right time. You do not need to force momentum. You need to allow flow. Important instruction for relationships. God says, the right people will align with your blessing naturally. They do not compete. They do not drain. They add value effortlessly. Those who are not aligned drift away without conflict. Another key aspect. God says, observe without interference. Do not micromanage the outcome. Do not overplan or stress. Your presence, calm energy, and readiness are enough to guide it. The blessing knows its path. You simply need to stay aware. Here is how it transforms every area of life. God says, abundance, clarity, peace, and opportunity converge when you multiply blessings quietly. Your finances stabilize. Your relationships flow naturally. Your purpose becomes clear. Your intuition sharpens. The effect is exponential because it is divine orchestration, not effort. Another truth for this chapter. God says, your patience, readiness, and attention are the catalysts. Without patience, blessings get mishandled. Without readiness, they pass unnoticed. Without attention, they stagnate. You are fully equipped for this. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word flow, because it affirms that you are ready to let the blessing multiply silently, naturally, and powerfully in every part of your life. Then type next chapter 5, because the next chapter reveals how to recognize the long-term signals that confirm this blessing is permanent and will continue to grow without you having to chase it. Stay present. The universe is working quietly but incredibly powerfully in your favor. Chapter 5, God says, recognize the long-term signals of a permanent blessing. Stop for a moment and feel this. Blessings that truly matter are not one-time events. They are currents, not fireworks. God says, when a blessing is permanent, it leaves subtle markers in your life that you will notice over time. These markers are quiet, almost invisible at first, but they grow in clarity as you pay attention. This is how you know what is lasting versus what is temporary. Here's the first signal. God says, your energy feels lighter even when challenges arise. Problems still exist. Struggles still appear, but you no longer carry them with panic, doubt, or resistance. Peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. It is anchored inside you. Second signal. God says, opportunities start arriving without effort or force. You do not chase. You do not manipulate. You do not overplan. They align themselves with your readiness, often in ways that surprise you. This is proof of divine orchestration. Third signal. God says, your relationships adjust naturally to support your growth. Those who are aligned remain. Those who are not aligned drift away. No drama. No judgment. This is the blessing creating space in your life for what truly matters. Fourth signal. God says, you notice synchronicities that confirm you are on the right path. Numbers, messages, conversations, and events begin repeating in meaningful ways. The universe speaks, and you start to understand its language. These confirmations may seem small, but they are powerful proof that alignment is permanent. Fifth signal. God says, you feel trust in the process without needing constant confirmation. You no longer question every move. You no longer stress about timing or outcomes. You simply move, respond, and remain attentive. This trust is a sign of true blessing. Another deep signal. God says, the blessing influences multiple areas of your life simultaneously. Financial stability, emotional calm, clarity in decisions, and spiritual growth begin converging. All were once separate. Now they move as one. This is how the divine multiplies impact quietly and permanently. Internal marker. God says, your inner voice is clearer than ever before. Intuition no longer whispers. It speaks clearly. Decisions are easier. Doubt has less grip. You trust yourself because the universe is confirming your alignment. Here's the final confirmation. God says, the blessing sustains even when you are not looking. It does not need constant attention. It does not vanish when tested. It grows quietly, steadily, and powerfully. This is the hallmark of permanence. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word confirmed, because it affirms that you recognize the blessing, trust its permanence, and align your life with its quiet power. Then type next chapter 6, Because the next chapter reveals how to carry this blessing forward into every decision, relationship, and opportunity, making its effects limitless. Stay grounded. The blessing that called your name today is not temporary. It is your new reality. Chapter 6, God says, carry this blessing into every part of your life. Stop for a moment and breathe deeply. Not because there is urgency, but because integration is the next step. God says, a blessing is not complete until it flows through every corner of your life. Thoughts, actions, relationships, and decisions. Receiving is the first step. Integration is the step that makes it permanent. Without integration, even the greatest blessing can fade. Here is how to integrate it. God says, let the blessing guide your choices quietly, without forcing outcomes. Do not overthink. Do not try to control it. Do not expect immediate confirmation. Your daily actions will become aligned naturally. Every small decision begins to resonate with this divine energy. Notice your interactions. God says, speak, act, and respond from this blessing. At work, in relationships with yourself, let it inform your energy. Let it inform your boundaries. Let it inform your generosity. When you live from it, the blessing multiplies exponentially. Another layer. God says, observe how opportunities now seem to come in bundles. One solution creates another. One connection unlocks multiple paths. One insight transforms multiple areas. The blessing was never meant to be isolated. It is designed for exponential growth. Internal alignment. God says, your thoughts, emotions, and decisions now carry a new weight. You no longer act from doubt, fear, or impatience. You act from trust, clarity, and readiness. Even the smallest action now has lasting impact. Here's a subtle but critical instruction. God says, protect this blessing by honoring your energy and peace. Say no when necessary. Step back when needed. Guard your focus. The blessing grows strongest when it is not scattered or diluted by distraction. Another key, God says, align your daily routines with the blessing's energy. Morning rituals, decision-making processes, communication patterns, all should reflect calm, focus, and receptivity. Even small alignment acts compound over time. Consistency is your multiplier, a divine secret. God says, the blessing also teaches patience, humility, and awareness. Do not rush its effects. Do not boast of its arrival. Observe how quietly and steadily life changes. This is how you become co-creator with the divine. Final sign of integration. God says, when gratitude becomes instinct, the blessing is fully carried forward. You no longer need reminders to be thankful. You no longer require dramatic events to appreciate life. You simply live from gratitude, and the universe responds in kind. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word integrated, because it affirms that you are ready to allow the blessing to flow through every part of your life, multiplying quietly and powerfully. Then type next chapter 7, because the next chapter reveals how this blessing positions you for long-term influence, purpose, and unstoppable momentum. Stay steady. This blessing is no longer external. It has become a part of who you are now. Chapter 7, God says, this blessing is positioning you for long-term impact and unstoppable momentum. Pause and reflect. Not because there is pressure, but because you're entering the phase where your blessing begins to ripple through your entire life. God says, when a blessing integrates fully, it does more than bring comfort. It sets the stage for influence, growth, and purpose you have not yet imagined. This is the moment where preparation, patience, and presence converge. Your past struggles were not random. They were the foundation. Your present readiness is not luck. It is divine orchestration. Here's how momentum begins. God says, doors that were closed before now open effortlessly. Not through luck, not through force, but because the universe sees you prepared, aligned, and receptive. Connections appear. Opportunities emerge. Paths that once felt blocked now flow naturally toward you. Another layer. God says, influence begins quietly. People notice your calm energy. Your clarity draws support without effort. Your presence creates trust without explanation. You are shaping your environment simply by being aligned with your blessing. Here's the critical insight. God says, long-term impact does not require visibility. It requires consistency and integrity. Do not chase attention. Do not boast of your progress. Do not force recognition. Let the blessing manifest in quiet influence that grows steadily, like roots spreading underground before a tree bears fruit. Internal signs of momentum. God says, you will notice your intuition sharpening more than ever. Decisions that once seemed impossible now feel clear. Opportunities reveal themselves before you even ask. You sense timing, alignment, and consequences instinctively. This is the internal confirmation of unstoppable momentum. Another key, God says, your priorities now align effortlessly with divine purpose. What once felt scattered now focuses naturally. Tasks, relationships, finances, and personal growth begin to synchronize with your highest good. You're no longer pulled in multiple directions. You move with precision and power, quietly but unmistakably. External signals appear. God says, opportunities compound when acted upon without hesitation. A single action now can create multiple outcomes. One connection can unlock a cascade of resources. One insight can solve multiple challenges simultaneously. The blessing is multiplying silently, strategically, and steadily. Another crucial instruction. God says, protect your momentum by prioritizing peace over speed. Rushing dissipates energy. Frustration slows alignment. Patience, presence, and focus amplify the blessing. Move deliberately. Act when prompted. Trust that timing is precise. Final confirmation for this chapter. God says, when your blessing flows through long-term alignment, it positions you for outcomes beyond imagination. Financial stability, career influence, supportive relationships, and personal fulfillment converge. The momentum you feel is not temporary. It is the foundation for a life of consistent success and divine alignment. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word momentum because it affirms that you are aligned with the long-term flow of your blessing, ready to act at the right moments, and positioned for unstoppable growth. Then type next chapter 8 because the next chapter reveals how to sustain this momentum while ensuring your blessing continues to expand exponentially in every area of your life. Stay grounded. The blessing that called your name today is now creating unstoppable ripple effects that will continue to grow. Chapter 8, God says, sustain and expand your blessing for exponential growth. Stop and focus. This is crucial. Not because there is pressure, but because you are entering the phase where sustainability meets exponential impact. God says, a blessing is only as powerful as your ability to sustain it. The next level requires care, focus, and conscious expansion. Receiving is one step. Integrating is the next. Sustaining and expanding is where true mastery begins. Here's how to sustain it. God says, consistency in energy, gratitude, and intention keeps the blessing alive. Your thoughts must remain anchored in alignment. Your emotions must reflect trust, not fear. Your actions must mirror purpose, not habit. This is how small daily choices compound into long-term abundance. Another layer. God says, your blessing thrives when nurtured silently, without need for recognition. Do not announce every breakthrough. Do not broadcast every shift. Do not depend on external validation. Growth multiplies quietly, like seeds taking root before breaking through the soil. Internal markers of exponential growth. God says, you will feel a sense of effortless flow in multiple areas of life simultaneously. Finances, relationships, career, personal clarity. They all begin to align naturally. Decisions become easier. Stress fades. Energy multiplies. You notice it internally before the external world catches up. Here is another key. God says, multiply the blessing by using it to uplift others without attachment to reward. Helping others, sharing resources, teaching, or guiding. When done without expectation, the blessing expands. It grows beyond what you imagined, creating ripple effects in unseen ways. The universe always reciprocates, often in ways far beyond your calculations. External signals of expansion. God says, opportunities will compound naturally, appearing in unexpected ways. One act leads to multiple openings. One decision aligns you with multiple solutions. One connection opens doors for several avenues simultaneously. The exponential power of your blessing is now visible in your life rhythm. Another crucial instruction. God says, protect your energy fiercely, because energy determines expansion. Guard your mind from negativity. Guard your time from distractions. Guard your heart from doubt. Every blessing carries responsibility. Energy is the currency for expansion. Final divine confirmation for this chapter. God says, when you sustain the blessing with intention, it does not remain static, it evolves. It evolves into wealth, influence, stability, clarity, and alignment. It creates momentum that feeds more momentum. It positions you for impact far beyond your current vision. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word expand, because it affirms that you are ready to sustain, nurture, and grow your blessing exponentially, creating ripple effects in every part of your life. Then type next chapter 9, because the next chapter reveals how to step fully into the long-term destiny your blessing is creating, making every decision aligned with divine timing. Stay aware. The blessing that called your name today is no longer just a rival. It is a force shaping your future with unstoppable precision. Chapter 9. God says, step fully into the destiny your blessing is creating. Stop everything for a moment. Not to worry, not to rush, but because you are about to enter the space where your blessing begins to sculpt your life's highest purpose. God says, every blessing you have received, every moment of patience, every struggle, and every prayer has prepared you for this destiny. This is not coincidence. This is the culmination of divine orchestration. The moment your name was called was the starting line, not the finish. Here is your first divine instruction. God says, walk boldly, yet with humility. You do not need to force recognition. You do not need to prove yourself. The universe aligns for those who move in quiet confidence, grounded in truth. Your actions now carry exponential influence, but only if guided by patience and intention. Another layer. God says, your destiny is connected to service and alignment. This is not about fame or wealth alone. It is about creating impact in ways that ripple through generations. Every choice, every act, every thought now carries long-term consequences for yourself and others. Pay attention. The blessing you have received is your tool and your responsibility. Internal markers you must recognize. God says, you will feel a new sense of certainty. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel clear. Challenges now feel like stepping stones, not obstacles. Your intuition is no longer quiet. It speaks boldly, guiding each step with confidence. This clarity is the signal that you are stepping fully into destiny. External confirmations. God says, the world will reflect your alignment through opportunities, connections, and resources. Doors that were once closed will now open. People who align with your growth will appear naturally. Solutions that seemed impossible will present themselves clearly. The blessing now orchestrates circumstances on your behalf. Here is a critical instruction for this phase. God says, do not overextend or act from fear of missing out. Not every opportunity is your next step. Discernment is now your greatest tool. Move with calm focus, not urgency, and your blessing will continue to guide the path. Another profound layer. God says, your presence alone now creates alignment for others. You may notice people suddenly gravitating toward your energy. They may seek guidance, inspiration, or support. Your calm and aligned energy becomes a catalyst for their own blessings. This is the ripple effect of divine timing. Internal anchor. God says, every thought, every intention, and every act now shapes long-term destiny. Your life is no longer a series of random events. It is a patterned unfolding of divine alignment. Every decision becomes a thread weaving your ultimate purpose. Final confirmation for this chapter. God says, step fully, act wisely, and trust completely. Your blessing is the key to fulfilling your destiny. Do not hesitate. Do not doubt. Move with awareness, gratitude, and purpose. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word destiny, because it affirms that you are ready to step fully into the life your blessing is creating, embracing purpose, alignment, and impact. Then type next chapter 10, because the next chapter reveals how to maintain momentum while embracing your full destiny, ensuring your blessings continue to grow and expand infinitely. Stay grounded. Your name was called for a reason far greater than you imagined. This is your awakening to long-term purpose. Chapter 10, God says, maintain momentum and embrace your full destiny for infinite growth. Pause. Take a deep breath. This chapter is the culmination of every blessing, every alignment, every moment of patience, and every divine whisper you have received. God says, you have arrived at the threshold where momentum meets purpose. How you move now determines the trajectory of your entire life. This is not about luck. This is not about coincidence. This is divine timing at its highest form, a blessing designed to flow continuously through every aspect of your existence. Here is your first instruction for infinite growth. God says, momentum is your ally, but awareness is your guide. Every action you take now is amplified. Every decision creates ripple effects beyond what you can see. This is why patience, focus, and discernment are more powerful than speed. Do not force growth. Do not seek validation. Move with purposeful intention and let the blessing expand naturally. Another layer of divine guidance. God says, anchor your life in gratitude, alignment, and vision. Gratitude keeps the blessing flowing. Alignment ensures every step matches your divine purpose. Vision allows you to see the long-term horizon while acting in the present. When these three converge, your momentum becomes unstoppable. Internal markers of sustained growth. God says, You will notice effortless clarity, renewed energy, and a profound sense of direction. Stress and confusion will fade. Decisions that once felt heavy will feel light. Your intuition will guide you as if the universe is speaking directly into your mind. This clarity is the fuel for continuous, exponential expansion. External signals of exponential momentum. God says, opportunities, connections, and resources will appear simultaneously, as if orchestrated by unseen hands. A single insight now leads to multiple breakthroughs. A single conversation now opens doors in ways previously unimaginable. A single decision now sets off a cascade of positive effects across every area of your life. Your life begins to expand in harmony with divine design. Another crucial instruction. God says, protect your energy, focus, and boundaries fiercely. Your blessing grows strongest when undistracted. Dispersed energy weakens progress. Clear boundaries and focused intention allow momentum to multiply quietly but powerfully. Here's a subtle, yet powerful sign. God says, those around you will reflect your alignment, some positively, some by drifting away. The right people stay. The wrong influences fall away naturally. This is divine pruning, making space for even greater growth. Internal anchor. God says, let your blessing guide not only your actions but your mindset, your choices, and your heart. Your decisions are no longer random. Your purpose becomes visible. Your energy attracts opportunities that resonate with your destiny. This is how infinite growth begins, from alignment in every layer of your being. Final confirmation for this chapter. God says, momentum without alignment fades. Alignment without momentum stalls. But together, they create unstoppable, infinite growth. You have now entered the phase where blessings no longer arrive in pieces. They arrive as a force that reshapes your life completely, sustainably, and exponentially. Seal this chapter now. Comment the word infinite because it affirms that you are ready to maintain momentum, embrace your full destiny, and allow your blessing to expand infinitely across every area of your life. Then type next chapter 11 because the next chapter reveals how to manifest the unseen opportunities the blessing is now attracting, making your life not just aligned but unstoppable. Stay grounded, stay aligned. Your name was called. Your blessing is no longer just arrival. It is eternal expansion in motion. Chapter 11, God says, the unseen opportunities are moving toward you now. Slow down for a moment. Not to hesitate, but to notice. God says, before opportunity becomes visible, it rearranges the unseen. This chapter is about what you cannot yet point to, but can already feel. That quiet anticipation in your chest, that calm certainty without evidence, that is not imagination. That is alignment catching up with reality. Here is the truth most people miss. God says, unseen opportunities do not arrive empty-handed. They arrive carrying answers. Answers to prayers you stopped repeating. Solutions to problems you learned to live with. Openings you thought required force, but only needed timing. This is that timing. Understand this clearly. God says, what is coming next will not look dramatic at first. It may look ordinary. A message, an invitation, a small change in routine, a decision that feels simple but lands heavy with consequence. Do not dismiss subtlety. Destiny often whispers before it speaks. Here is how to recognize the unseen as it approaches. God says, your resistance is fading. You're no longer fighting life. You're no longer over-explaining yourself. You're no longer trying to convince the world of your worth. That release is not weakness. It is readiness. Another marker is appearing now. God says, your focus is sharpening. Distractions lose their grip. Noise feels exhausting. You crave clarity, not chaos. This is the internal environment required for unseen doors to open. Pay attention to this instruction. God says, respond, do not chase. What is meant for you will approach without pursuit. Your role is presence, not pressure. Discernment, not desperation. Let opportunity recognize you by your calm. Something important is shifting in your identity. God says, you are no longer preparing for your life. You're stepping into it. Preparation season is ending. Application season is beginning. The skills, patience, wisdom, and restraint you built, they now have a place to land. Here is a quiet promise. God says, what you could not access before will now respond to you. Resources, support, information, favorável timing, not because you demanded it, but because you are aligned to carry it. Be mindful of this final guidance in this chapter. God says, stay grounded when things start moving quickly. Acceleration can feel disorienting. Do not abandon your values for speed. Do not confuse motion with direction. Stay rooted. That is how momentum stays clean. Searchable, ukstay. Comment the word open, because it signals that you are receptive, aware, and ready to recognize opportunity without fear or force. Then type next chapter 12, because the next chapter reveals how to take the first aligned action when the unseen becomes visible, without self-doubt, hesitation, or regret. Remain present. What is moving toward you now was delayed only to arrive complete. Chapter 12, God says, now take the first aligned step without fear. Be still for a moment, not because you must wait, but because the next step is already forming beneath your feet. God says, when the unseen becomes visible, hesitation is the only thing that can delay alignment. This chapter is about movement, not rushed movement. Clean, intentional, aligned action. Understand this clearly before you act. God says, the first step will not require perfection, only honesty. You do not need every answer. You do not need full confidence. You do not need approval. You only need willingness to move without betraying your inner truth. Here is what aligned action feels like. God says, it feels calm, not dramatic. No panique, no chaos. No need to announce it to the world. Just a quiet certainty that says, this is mine to do now. Another truth you must hold. God says, fear does not mean stop. Fear means something important is crossing into form. Do not confuse nervousness with misalignment. Every meaningful step carries weight. The difference is this. Misalignment feels heavy and draining. Alignment feels serious, but energizing. Watch for this internal signal. God says, your intuition will speak once, clearly. It will not beg. It will not repeat endlessly. It will offer direction calmly, then wait. Honor it the first time. That is how momentum stays intact. Here is how to take the step correctly. God says, act without rushing, but do not delay. Delay invites doubt. Overthinking clouds clarity. Presence keeps the path clean. Take the step while your mind is quiet, and your intention is pure. Something important happens when you move. God says, once you take the first aligned step, support rearranges around you. Resources appear. People respond. Timing shifts. Not all at once, but enough to confirm. You are walking the correct direction. Another layer of guidance. God says, do not measure this step by outcome. Measure it by integrity. If your action honors your values, protects your peace, and respects your growth, then it is aligned regardless of speed. A warning you must respect. God says, do not explain your step to those who cannot feel your alignment. Explanation drains energy. Validation invites interference. Let results speak later. Silence protects momentum now. Here is the promise attached to this chapter. God says, once movement begins, hesitation loses its power. Confidence is not built before action. Confidence is built by action. And this first step unlocks the next three. Seal chapter 12 now. Comment the word move, because it affirms that you are ready to take the first aligned step without fear, delay, or self-betrayal. Then type next chapter 13, because the next chapter reveals how to handle acceleration when things begin to move faster than expected, without losing balance or clarity. Stay grounded. The path is no longer forming. You're already on it. Chapter 13. God says, when acceleration begins, anchor yourself in truth. Pause again briefly, not to slow progress, but to stabilize your center. God says, acceleration is not chaos when you are rooted. It is alignment gaining speed. This chapter prepares you for what happens after you move. When momentum increases, responses multiply, and life begins to answer faster than you expected. Here is the first truth you must understand. God says, acceleration does not mean you are losing control. It means resistance has ended. When things begin to move quickly, it is not because you rushed. It is because delays dissolved. You're not being pushed. You're being carried. Here is what acceleration often looks like. God says, clarity replaces confusion almost overnight. Decisions that once took weeks now take minutes. Paths that felt blocked suddenly open. What once drained you now fuels you. This is not coincidence. This is alignment doing its work efficiently. But hear this carefully. God says, speed requires grounding. Without grounding, speed becomes instability. With grounding, speed becomes precision. This is why your inner practices now matter more than ever. Stillness before action. Discernment before agreement. Presence before reaction. Watch for this internal shift. God says, your tolerance for nonsense will drop. You will feel less patient with distractions, less willing to entertain misaligned conversations, less available for what does not serve growth. This is not arrogance. This is refinement. Another signal of healthy acceleration. God says, you will stop chasing closure. You will no longer need everyone to understand you. You will release the need to revisit old chapters. You will let unanswered questions remain unanswered. Acceleration favors those who travel light. Here is a crucial instruction. God says, say no quickly. Say yes slowly. Fast yes create regret. Delayed no's create drains. Choose wisely. Every agreement now has multiplied impact. What to do when momentum feels overwhelming. God says, return to your values, not your fears. Fear asks, what if I lose this? Values ask, does this honor who I am becoming? Let values decide. They will never mislead you. Another divine safeguard. God says, rest is not retreat. Rest is calibration. Acceleration does not mean exhaustion. True momentum includes recovery. Stillness sharpens perception. Balance sustains power. Here is what happens when you stay grounded. God says, momentum becomes mastery. You stop reacting. You start directing. Life responds to your clarity, not your urgency. This is the difference between fast movement and aligned acceleration. Final confirmation for this chapter. God says, what is moving now will not crash if you remain centered. You're not behind. You're not late. You're exactly where speed meets wisdom. Seal chapter 13 now. Comment the word steady, because it affirms that you are ready to move fast without losing balance, clarity, or integrity. Then type next chapter 14, Because the next chapter reveals how to lead your life from inner authority. So momentum answers to you, not the other way around. Stay centered. Acceleration is happening. And this time, you are ready for it. Chapter 14. God says, lead from inner authority and life will follow. Be still, just long enough to feel this truth settle. Not in your mind, in your center. God says, you no longer need permission. Inner authority has awakened. This chapter is about leadership, not over others, but over your own life. When inner authority is active, momentum does not drag you forward. Momentum responds to you. Understand this foundation first.